Hello and welcome, crypto community. Today we have the privilege of chatting with Witek Radomski, the CTO of Enjin and the author of the new ERC 1155 multi-token standard. Witek, thanks so much for coming on for a chat.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I personally find Enjin really one of the most interesting use cases in blockchain today. We have 2.3 billion video gamers online. It's a massive market that's regularly on the cutting edge of accepting and adopting new innovation. For someone who's not necessarily familiar with Enjin, how would you describe the problem that Enjin is solving and the value that Enjin is adding to this, massive network of 2.3 billion gamers?
Yeah, what we're trying to do is create a end-to-end solution for gamers and game developers. So, like the real core of it is to tokenize assets, to tokenize items that are in games. So imagine playing a game and receiving these items. You kill some enemy, you pick up his weapon, or loot the dragon at the end of the dungeon, or things like that. What blockchain allows you to do, and what we allow you to do, is to actually own that item in your blockchain account. And that's the very simplest core of it, but it starts opening up a massive world of possibilities for games. So if you now own the item and the item is on the blockchain, the item can actually start getting its own history. Like if the item was owned by somebody else who is maybe famous, now you'll know that you have the item that was actually owned by the famous person.
So it creates like a storyline.
Yeah, you have history that goes into all these items, and it's trackable forever, basically. And another thing you can do is like you can actually put value into these items. So let's say a new game is coming out, and the game developer is trying to raise some funding, and they sell some collector's edition items or some early items for the game. They can raise funding for the game this way, and players can get these unique rare items, and they can verify that maybe there's only 100 copies of that rare item in the world, and there will only ever be 100 copies because it's in the contract on the blockchain.
Right. And so, yeah, and then these items that they're then holding, if you join the game, you play it for a year, you love it, and then you decide, hey, it's time for me to move on to another game, that token would then be transferable. And how would somebody go about doing that?
Yeah, you can actually do a lot of things. So you can trade it or sell it to somebody. We're actually working on a marketplace right now that you can actually go straight into the blockchain explorer, or just open the item up on your mobile wallet and say, hey, I just want to put this up for sale for, X amount of Enjin coin or X amount of dollars or whatever it is. And then people can look at that item and say, oh, I want that one, and I'll buy it. And this is all done through either the in-game interface or in their wallet directly. So they can do that. And they can also, let's say the game goes offline or was never created, and they bought all these items for this game, and then it turned into vaporware, the developer closed shop. So what we allow in our items is actually to put reserve value, sort of like the material the item's created of. It can actually be put inside of the item. So you can actually melt it and receive some value back, even if the item is not usable in a game. So
interesting. So could you expand on that a little bit? So for example, like you buy a master sword or something for a game, and then let's say it costs you 1 ether or 300 US dollars, whichever you want to peg it to, and the game shuts down. Then you're going to melt it, and where is that value then coming from? Is Enjin kind of backing that value, or maybe expand a little bit on that?
So when a game developer creates the item, they actually infuse some Enjin coin into that item. And we're actually working with like 35 game developers right now. There's quite a few games in development, and they tend to put a larger amount of Enjin coin value inside the item if that item is like a rare one, or if it's worth more. So it kind of follows the value of the item. If it's just a health potion, it's not going to have much value in there.
For sure. And the developer would then have to fund that themselves.
Yeah, so when the developer starts creating their game, they have a budget. They put the Enjin coin into minting all these items.
Right.
Just like, you forged a sword out of steel, you use that material and you make the sword out of it, right? And so now the gamers know that there's some security, there's some certification kind of backing that item. It's an ecosystem, and they can actually retrieve their value out of it at any time. Even if they get banned from the game, if the game shuts down, whatever happens, they can actually extract it. We call it melting the item.
Yeah, that's super cool. So you're able to kind of get into games, before they're even launched. You're able to trade, as you say, with the marketplace upcoming as games are, in the process of being live. And then
Yeah.
also what I saw was there's something you guys have called the multiverse. And this is really interesting. Can you expand on what the multiverse is and what benefits that's bringing?
Oh, the multiverse is huge.
I know you love this. I love the smile on your face as soon as you said it.
Yeah, I mean, we're actually creating this whole like matrix under like this matrix under the gaming world of all these items that people can own, and they can actually take some of these items from one game to another.
Uh-huh.
So since these items are on the blockchain's a public ledger. Now any game can actually say, oh, if that guy has that sword, maybe that sword can be usable in my game too.
Right.
And games could even partner with each other and cross promote their items. So, they'll display these items, these swords in their game, and then they'll get some cross pollination of their users. And the users benefit because now they can jump into all these different games. They want this awesome item, and they can drag along with them to different games and see how it functions. And it's really cool because now your items don't have this shelf life of just being usable in this one simple, this one single game. It's
Right.
You can do so much more. And like we actually kickstart, like kind of jump started this for game devs. So we have all these people that are kind of early adopters in our program, and we started seeding. We made some items, and we said, here you go, here's some items, see if you can cross collaborate, use them. So we made like a gun, a sword, and a shield, and a few different things. And now in some cases there's 9 or 10 games that support one item.
Right. So you guys are essentially creating like a crossover for all games, linking an entire, well, yeah, multiverse is probably the best way to say it, really. I think you guys nailed it with that phrase, is that everything is coming together and Enjin is acting as that link. And so now when people are putting in time or like value, whether it's in time or money, that's transferable across all games. Because I think so many people have played video games and you play it for a year and then you're like, wow, I've leveled up to level X, well, whatever, level 50. And my guy is insane, but I'm just kind of bored with the game. Now, where does all that effort go to?
Exactly.
So essentially Enjin's gonna be able to be like, hey, all this effort, all this money you've put in, all this time, you can now transfer that. So you can kind of get momentum behind your gaming repertoire. And essentially you could become, in a way, a pro gamer, because if you're able to really level up in these games quickly, you can then sell items that you're earning and swap that on the marketplace. So that's super interesting.
Yeah. Like before we move on, like there's another cool thing that you can do. Like I remember playing games, I've been gaming since I was really young, right? So I've been playing tons of these games, and a lot of them, I have all these amazing memories and these amazing items that I actually picked up in the past.
Right.
And, even some of these games might not exist anymore, or some of them are really old and they're just kind of, scraping along now. But I kind of want to still see these items, and I want to, that nostalgia of playing that game back in the day with my friends. So
Right.
do something like build a trophy room of some kind and show off all of your items from your gaming history in your virtual, house or virtual trophy room.
That's super, super cool. And I know a lot of people in the Enjin community, they're really excited about all the developments that you guys have going on right now. And, we put out some questions to the community, and, a lot of them are based on timelines, and Marketplace, which we're talking about, is one of the ones that they're really keen on. Do you have any rough idea on, what's the state of the marketplace, what people can expect?
Yeah, it's looking really good. It's going to be out under a month from now. So yeah, the marketplace is going to be fully functional.
That's super exciting. And so just to reiterate for people who aren't as familiar, you're going to be able to trade assets. Is there any other kind of key features that the marketplace is going to be including?
Yeah, we took a whole look from the ground up at marketplaces, and we wanted to do something different. We don't want to just make, a typical gaming item marketplace, because those exist. We're integrating the marketplace like directly into our wallet and our blockchain explorer.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can be looking at somebody else, like your friend shares their blockchain account with you on Enjin X or Blockchain Explorer. They're like, hey, check out my gear. And then you see that, oh, there's this really cool weapon that he has. And he's like, oh, you're like, oh, I wish I could have that weapon. And you go into that weapon's details. And now you see, oh, somebody's selling that weapon. And you can just click once on that guy, on the buy button.
Right.
The wallet will pop up and say, do you want to pay X Enjin coins for this item?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and boom, you have that item. You pop into the game and there you go, you have the item. So it's kind of more like an intuitive system where you're actually interacting inside your wallet, inside the blockchain explorer, and eventually inside the games themselves to trade these things instead of signing up to a website and looking through a giant list of things that are for sale.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. And so just to clarify for some people, you mentioned the Enjin token is what you buy these assets with. So the tokenized assets in the gaming world are separate from the Enjin token itself, yeah?
Yeah, the Enjin coin is actually ERC20 kind of cryptocurrency.
Mm-hmm.
So it's used for, we're actually building a lot of use cases for it, but the main use case is to create these items out of it, like the forging material.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can use it in the marketplace to buy items with.
Right, because the Enjin token is the only item that you can use to forge things, correct?
Yes.
Right. So then that's where the inherent value is right there.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. So, if you're a user and you're listening to this and you're thinking, okay, this is like, I'm sold. Obviously, video games, they're huge. You're like a third, fourth of the world's population. They're in on this. It's getting bigger by the day. Twitch is overcoming so many platforms right now. Like, gaming is the way that the world is moving. There's no question about it, the online world. So and I like this concept. How do I start to get involved with Enjin as a user? I want to start interacting with this ecosystem.
So we're releasing all these different products. Some of them are for developers, some of them are for gamers, and then there's game developers actually developing games on it. So you could try, for example, downloading the Enjin wallet. We work really hard on this wallet. It's a multi-currency wallet. It supports Ether, all ERC20 tokens, ERC721 collectibles, and ERC1155 crypto collectibles. And also it supports Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ether. So you can download that. It's extremely secure. Check it out. See how our interface works. You can actually you can go into the community, try to trade for some gaming items, figure out how that all works. Or you can actually just go in and try a game. Right now, most of the games are still in development, but there are a number that are out in beta and alpha. So like one of them is Space Misfits. Forgotten Artifacts is another game that has a beta out, and there's, I think, Nine Lives Arena just entered alpha as well. So there's more and more games coming out that actually you can jump into. You can play the game and receive some items, and it'll pop right into your wallet, and you'll see the power of this. So
that's really cool, because then that's seamless, because the wallet is on like mobile devices, yeah?
Yeah, it's for Android and iOS right now.
So then the friction point on a user is inherently zero from what I'm hearing. It's like you go play the game, you download the wallet, it sends it to your wallet, and then I'm sure the marketplace will be interacting with the wallet.
Exactly.
And so it's like, I love what you guys are doing, I got to say it.
Well, yeah, I mean, okay, the thing that I really always hated about crypto is my biggest pet peeve for the last 10 years was the difficulty in getting started. Yeah. The beginning, I mean, sure, there was like QT wallets and stuff for Bitcoin. It was really confusing. And then just doing anything more complex than sending some Bitcoin was just really, you had to pull your hair out and read all these cryptic forums and things. So now we're reaching the point where we actually have super easy to use mainstream tools. And we're trying to provide that for gamers and for developers. So anyone who wants to build stuff on this, build games, it's super intuitive to use, and the gamers who want to use it, it's intuitive to them as well.
That's phenomenal. And so, you mentioned building and the developers, like what is the process there? What's the suite of services that you're offering, and how difficult is it, to transition if you have a fully functional game into the Enjin ecosystem?
It's really easy on the technical side. I mean, the only thing you have to think about is your game design, and you don't want to just shoehorn some items into your game without thinking about how it's going to work, right?
Yeah.
But, technically, it's super easy, right? You just if your game is built on Unity, which is, I think, around half of the games in existence are built in Unity. We have a partnership with Unity. We have a really powerful Unity SDK. You download that, you install it as a plugin into the Unity platform, and you can immediately start minting items, attaching them to your in-game items. It's very clear how to do that. You can look at a user's inventory and you can see that he has, the sword and all these different things. You can show your 3D models and whatever you need in the game. So for developers, it's super easy. We're actually building a really powerful web panel to get this even easier. So if you're not a programmer, let's say you're just a game designer, and you're using some kind of drag and drop tool to make your game, or a web designer using some web tools to make a web game, you can actually go into our web panel and manage and create all these assets on the web, and it'll just send a message to your wallet asking you for confirmation. So it makes it super easy.
And I saw also that Ivan on Tech, he has an Enjin Academy going, yeah?
Oh yeah, that's so cool. Like, yeah, he's actually building. I think it's fully released now that you can just learn how to make games, make blockchain games from the ground up in Unity.
Right. Have you had a look through that yet? I haven't.
Yeah, he gave me access, but I haven't gone fully through it because it's so much going on right now.
For sure.
But I want to try it out. It's cool. Like, yeah, I'm really honored that somebody built a course on how to build games on blockchain and using our platform.
100%. I got goosebumps when you said that, actually, because it's so amazing to build something out of like so much passion, because Enjin's been around for about 10 years now, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now to just see like so much traction, you guys are in the top 100 on CoinMarketCap, you're just really doing a phenomenal job. So yeah, like then to have a course launched like that by Ivan, very, very cool. So congrats on that.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, like we have all sorts of tools we're building for all kinds of developers. It's not just Unity. We have other SDKs in the works, like the Godot SDK and Unreal Engine. And also we have an API that if you're just programming in any language, doesn't matter what it is, if you're making a website that wants to show these game items, or make your own marketplace, or make your own wow head, like where you show your character and all the items, you can easily do that by using our API.
Very cool. So that was a good amount on Enjin there. I'd love to transition, because the reason why I wanted to get you on in the first place is because you just released the ERC 1155, which is super exciting in itself.
Yes.
And I know for a lot of people, just Bitcoin, Ethereum, that's all they know. So could you maybe give people a quick breakdown of, Ethereum ERC 20, which is what most Ethereum tokens are on right now. And then there's a new one that came in recently, ERC 721. And then ERC 1155, and just kind of break down those three and kind of how they all compare to each other.
Yeah, those are the three major token standards. So Ethereum is a fully community built project, and when people want to change something and create a standard, you want standards so that wallets and developers and everybody can build on the same standards. So ERC 20s are basically cryptocurrencies on Ethereum, like separate tokens that are like a currency. So if you want to create an ERC 20 token, you want to call it, Witek coin or whatever it is, you give it a supply and you give it, the amount of decimal places it has. You launch the smart contract on Ethereum, and now you have this one currency, and you can stack as many of those onto each other as possible. So it's basically a fungible currency. It means you can send 500 of your token, or you can send 1,000 of your token at once, and it's just that one fungible unit. That's every unit of that is the same as the other.
Yeah, that's a perfect summary. Fungible, divisible. I think that's kind of the summary of
like
currency. Yeah, and then the 721.
Yeah, so 721 is non-fungible items. So if you think about anything, a lot of things in the real world really are, you have your favorite, your favorite mug. That's a unique thing. You can't get it. You can't replace it. It's vintage or whatever. If you have some sort of collector's edition item, that is that one physical thing that you love. It's irreplaceable. It's unique in the world. So. Non-fungible tokens are that it's basically any kind of creature or unique collector's item. Every item is actually given its own ID number on the blockchain, and so you can transfer those as single units. So this is really useful for gaming as well, because if you have like CryptoKitties, for example, every kitty is unique. It has its own genes, its own parameters. I think even its own name. So that standard lets you define those unique items, and in gaming that's going to be huge, because you have your unique items that that maybe get some history, get some damage, have their own unique attack power, whatever it is, those will get imbued into that single copy of that item. Or you might have, as ERC20 in the game, you would have like swords where you have, a stack of 1,000 iron swords or a stack of arrows, right? Where each item is not really unique compared to the other ones. And so now ERC 1155. So we looked at these two standards, and it seems like you should be able to do everything with those two kinds of items. But these standards were created in an earlier time when people were thinking, okay, we're going to make cryptocurrency like tokens on Ethereum for ERC20. And then, okay, we got to make collectibles with ERC 721. And then we looked at the situation and we realized that you can't really build games. You can't build every kind of game, and you can't build them efficiently using those two token standards. ERC20 tokens are really only designed for deploying a single kind of cryptocurrency token. And for a game, the only thing it would be useful for is like gold, for example, or credits or gold or jewels. If that's the only thing you're operating on in the game, maybe ERC20 works. But then when you want to have when you want to have multiple types of items, the whole thing starts to get really difficult to work with because ERC20s are separate smart contracts per each item. That means all the functionality, all the code that goes behind that item, you have to duplicate on the blockchain every single time you want to create a new item. And that just bloats up the blockchain. It's really difficult to work with code. So with ERC 721, its only purpose is to make collectible items. And it has a lot of limitations as well. You can only send one item at a time. So you have to send each, if you have a whole litter of CryptoKitties, you have to actually make separate transactions to send each single one out to people. And that costs a lot of gas. It's inefficient. And each 721 contract is also separate in the blockchain. So if you want to have CryptoKitties and crypto puppies and all these different things and have a game that uses all of them, each one is on a different smart contract. And now your game has to talk to each contract and get permission for each contract. And none of them can really interoperate easily with each other. So we realized, okay, you have this data on the blockchain. You want to have, gold in a game plus unique weapons and unique items. You want to have both fungibles and non-fungibles. So we realized we had to make a new standard, and we wanted to put it all in one smart contract. So you deploy one big smart contract onto Ethereum, and that manages all the items. That lets you create and manage infinite, literally millions, infinite amounts of items in that one smart contract. So now you can do things like combine items together, do crafting in the same smart contract. You can, have some arrows and some fire water and combine them together, and some alchemy and have, flaming arrows or whatever.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah. So that allows that. It also lets you transfer many different classes of items to people and trade them in one big transaction.
Yeah.
If you want to do a secure trade, you don't really want to have to send that guy your items and then wait for him to send something back. With ERC 1155, you can actually do one transaction that says, I'm going to trade you these 5 items for your pile of gold. And that happens in one shot. You don't need an escrow. You don't need any complications like that. And so you can think of it you can think of the whole token standard kind of like, I don't know if it's a good idea to say this, maybe like a vending machine or something where you have a vending machine that has like all the different kinds of items that you want.
Yeah.
If you want to mint them, you ask it to mint those items. And that vending machine is like that smart contract that manages all these different items.
Yeah. No, it's funny you mentioned the vending machine one, because when my friends were like, hey, what is Ethereum? I'm like, okay, so it's like a vending machine. And they're like, this isn't innovative at all. I'm like, but you don't understand. Yeah, totally. Very, very cool. And so ERC 721's, the 1155 is backwards compatible with 721.
Yeah,
correct?
To an extent. I mean,
okay.
The Sandbox actually made a version of their tokens that is both ERC 1155 and ERC 721. You just have to make sure to include all those both functions in your contract. So we wrote some stuff in the discussion thread in ERC 1155 on how you might be able to do that. You could also look at how the Sandbox game did it. So if
Right.
you really want to, you can add those 721 specific functions in there and make it work. But I think you don't really need that as time goes on. ERC1155 can do everything and more that a 721 contract can do.
Yeah. So this 1155 is really like a pivotal part of the marketplace right now, because rather than having to do a one-to-one switch, you can now do 100 to 500. Or are there any limits on what can be traded? Like, for example, could you trade a Bitcoin, or can you only trade, within that Enjin ecosystem?
It has to be within the ERC 1155 contract. So in the marketplace, we're actually going to allow Ether to be traded as well for items.
Nice.
But Bitcoin means you have to go out of the chain. You have to do something cross-chain. So
For sure.
we're not. I don't think we're supporting that right now. But within the smart contract system, it's really easy to do all that stuff.
Yeah, and that's fair. I think you're making big strides already. You don't need to go for it all at once. Cross-chain is complex enough. So for some questions from the community, just kind of one-offs, the community is always interested in timelines and when things are rolling out. So I know some things are under wraps, but I have to ask anyways. So Efinity and Mainnet access, can you shed some light on those two?
So Mainnet access, a couple of days ago, we actually launched our latest version of the ERC1155 contract. So it's final, it matches the final standard, and the address won't change anymore. So now we're just going to spend, some time, I don't know if it's going to be a couple of weeks or a few weeks, to make sure that all the systems are perfect, everything's working perfectly, the game developers are, transitioned perfectly, and then we're going to open up Mainnet access. So it's literally just flipping a switch. Everything is basically ready to go.
That's exciting.
And
That's super exciting.
Yeah. So finally, you can just jump on. Like right now, we have the testnet open. People can make stuff on testnet, but then we're gonna open the mainnet APIs for everybody, and you can use this whole system in your games directly on mainnet. So Efinity is it's been in progress for a long time. We've been in R&D for over a year, and we've been building it for a number of months now. And originally, we were thinking of releasing it around September-ish. But it may stretch. It depends on how things go. We were initially aiming for something like 200 transactions per second, but we realized that this isn't good enough for the kind of for the kind of scale that we will need. If you look at one large game, it might need thousands of transactions per second in a mainstream game. So we've actually made some interesting breakthroughs in our work and our research, and we are continuing to improve Efinity. We should be able to have some things to show people, some actual like alpha stuff to show how fast this is working, how many transactions we're getting, how it functions in a few months. And we're definitely want to get something out to people by the end of the year. But an exact date I can't really give you right now, because we're actually trying to solve a really challenging thing here. It isn't just slapping together some kind of layer 2 side chain thing and making it work. We want, like, the core things about Efinity is we want gamers to be able to start using the blockchain without having to have Ether, without having to have any prior crypto knowledge. This is the only way that we're going to onboard, tens, hundreds of thousands of people onto these games that are coming out. And all the games need this stuff to be cheap, fast, super fast.
Yeah.
So yeah, we need to get gamers playing for free, using this stuff for free, and we need it to work super fast. We need thousands, tens of thousands of transactions per second, possibly. So we are making some changes. We've got some really interesting ideas, and we're playing with that right now. So like I said, a few months from now, hopefully we'll be able to show you something really cool, and then after that, we'll see what the launch dates look like.
Yeah, and that's perfect. Sometimes the community can get a little antsy to see, rollouts that have been, talked about, but you guys are rolling out with so much, and to have that vision to say, we need to make this so that the masses come, because I feel like you totally nailed it. Is if there's any friction points, then the system is flawed and it's not going to kick off. So to be able to do it right and take maybe an extra 3 months, 6 months, whatever the timeline is, even a year, like that's quite all right. We got a lot of timeline ahead of this. And like, for example, who would you say are some big competitors to Enjin or doing something similar? Or is there like a race that you guys feel like you're in?
I mean, oh, look, there's a lot of gaming projects out there, right? So a lot of people are trying to build gaming systems, and that's really cool. Um, we're just trying to make our solution, like we have this vision. We want to solve all the friction points, make it as seamless as possible for gamers and game devs. I don't think anybody in the market, anybody in the blockchain space is doing it like we are right now. A full turnkey blockchain system, gamers can install, developers can install, have no friction in any of the pieces of this. I don't think anyone has the scope that we're working on, from games to wallets to SDKs to platforms to tools to like to the wallet and to all this different stuff that all connects together, the scaling system. And as this comes together, it all just works easily together, and it doesn't cause any weird conflicts and problems. So I think we're the only ones right now. I mean, if someone wants to create tokenized assets, they can jump on our platform, do that really easily, without having to deal with too much boilerplate blockchain difficulties.
And I think that's exactly, you guys leading the charge with no one really kind of at your heels just provides you guys such a phenomenal opportunity to really be able to take the time to do it right the first time around and just absolutely knock it out of the park, which you guys have definitely been doing so far.
Yeah, thanks.
So a couple of kind of coy questions from the community. What old beloved game do you feel would fit perfectly into the multiverse? Which game would you want to see if you could have like your wildest dream? You're like 1, 2, 3. I want these 3 games right in here.
Okay, 3 games. Well, I mean, all the old MMOs. I was huge into MMOs back in the day. So like World of Warcraft and Anarchy Online was one of my favorites, and probably RuneScape would work really well. I think EVE Online would work really well too. But I spoke to the CEO, and he was like, we have our thing we've been doing for ages now. It won't work, but maybe in the future we'll do something else with blockchain. We'll see, right?
Right. Yeah, because I guess that's the big friction point on bringing on these older established things. They're like, it's already working what we're doing.
Yeah, their community has trust in their system already. So they've proven over many years, sometimes in some cases like a decade now, that their system is fine. So that's fine. But I mean, there's a lot of games. I mean, there's any kind of multiplayer game that's been out in the last 5-10 years is I think would benefit from this kind of stuff. I wish I could play CS:GO with tokenized items and be able to trade some items that some famous player had, or trade skins, or do different kinds of things like that. So that's FPS and any kind of game, honestly.
So obviously you're really busy lately, but everyone has a little bit of downtime. So what would be the game that you're currently playing the most right now?
I'm still playing Frostpunk. I play a little bit of Diablo 3. I know it's kind of old of me, but really fun to sit down and play co-op Diablo 3. Those are the 2 that I'm playing.
Nice, very cool. So looking into the future, say like 3 years down the pipeline, sometimes it's hard to envision, but what would you imagine for the Enjin ecosystem?
2 or 3 years down the line?
Yeah.
I think that we will have hundreds, if not thousands, of games interoperating with each other. I mean, items usable across dozens of games, different groups of multiverses going on between different kinds of games. Hopefully we'll see some AAA game developers using this blockchain stuff as well. And I think people will start seeing new kinds of gameplay being created with blockchain. I will actually get more addicted to gaming myself when this is fully realized in all these different go in, play the games, receive these items, trade them with people on separate communities or on the marketplace or things like that. It'll feel a lot more engaging, and I just see this. We talk to a lot of game developers, and a lot of them really connect with the idea of doing this. Once they get it, they understand what it can do for them. They're like, oh wow, I could use this for this thing in my game or that thing in my game. So that I think in 2 or 3 years down the line, layer 2 scaling will be completely solved, and people won't be bothered by blockchain costs or speed issues anymore. So you'll be able to use this as a really seamless, cool thing, and tons of people will actually be able to use blockchain without even knowing that they're using blockchain.
Yeah, I think it's really going to flip kind of the rhetoric on video games. You know, a lot of people say like, "Oh, it's a quote unquote waste of time."
Mm.
Now I think that'll flip into a building of value because as you're playing, you're building value into your account.
Sure. I mean, for some people might do it for building value, or some people might do it just to have that identity, that online identity that
Mhm.
has that realness to it, right?
Right.
And they'll get a lot more into those games because after a while, if you play some games, a year or two down the line, you might feel like it's kind of like you're getting all these items and then they're just sort of stuck and rotting away after a while on the
Yeah.
games. So,
Very cool. Well, Witek, thanks so much for coming on to chat. It was a pleasure. This was a really fun conversation.
yeah, it was really fun. Thanks. Great questions.
For anyone who's watching this stream, this video on Uptrend, you can check below. We're going to have a little giveaway. Otherwise, for everyone else, check you next time. Witek, thanks so much. It's been a pleasure, man.
You're welcome. Thank you.